everybody, welcome back to Darvanalee Designs Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed and today we are here for my booktube Stitch With Me. So basically what a booktube Stitch With Me is, I talk about the books that I have read in the last week and I do a little bit of stitching while I'm talking about them. Alright, so the chart that I'm working on today is by Barbra Designs. It's called Wicked. This is actually filling a prompt for me in daily 30. I have to stitch on something that I can. There's a paragraph in the group on the challenge, and I have to relate my chart to a film, a book, or something along a video game, etc. So, Wicked is a movie. So I'm stitching on this and it's actually got the name Wicked in it, so it's even better. Alright, so as I said, I am stitching on this. It's a primitive design and I really like it. This is just going to go, it's either going to get put into a smallish frame or it'll get turned into a little dough bowl cushion. So as you can see here, but I'm thinking like a little frame and maybe putting it up on the wall with my other primitive stuff. Alright, so I haven't done too much on this and I've still got to set up all my frame and all the rest of it, but I've got the cats in and I've started on the broom, and so I'll be working on a little bit of the witch today. Alright, so just let me get my chart in order and all the rest of it, but first of all, speaking of books, I've actually read 3 books this week and started 2 others. I got a little bit bored with one of the ones, which is Magical Stitches prompt, the Novice's Tale. So I thought I'd start my bingo one. So I've got 2 physical books on the go. I'm reading one in the morning, one in the evening. So the Quick and the Thread and the Novice's Tale are physical books. So, well, on Kindle anyway. So not so much physical, but I'm still holding my my Kindle in my hand, so physical book. But these, I've also read the Thorn Birds and Born in Ice and The Perfect Facade. So The Perfect Facade is by Blake Pierce. That's a continuing Jessie Hunt saga, because it's a saga now, because it's, you know, I think I'm up to book 12 or 13 or something like that. Thorn Birds was a bingo prompt, and Born in Ice was a Magical Stitches prompt, so I had to read an author with the initials that started with N, so Nora Roberts. Alright, but I actually wanted to share with you something that I've been working on. You've probably seen a couple of pictures over in the group, but it's my reading journal. So I'm just going to zoom out just a touch. Hopefully that'll come out a bit. Yep. Okay, so this is my reading journal. This is what it looks like. It actually looks like an old-fashioned book, which I'm really happy with, and I'll probably get a similar book for next year as well. So basically what a reading journal is just a physical place that I can keep track of things that I'm doing and challenges that I'm doing and what I do in any particular month or anything like that. So last year I had one. It was a bit hit and miss. I didn't really stick with it. I didn't really get right into it and all the rest of it. There was a couple of things that I did that I'm doing again this year, except I'm just doing them up a little bit different. So I did have my bookshelf from last year, and then I had the book covers from last year. So I had them like this. So I've still got the shelf, but I'm doing the book covers a little bit different. I found this just to be very bland. And my monthlies, I'm doing, like, I've still got my 20 and 22. I haven't put my favorite book there yet. Yeah, and I put artwork in. So this was last year's. It's not really finished. I did January. There was a bit hit and miss. So this was the front layout. So it was the month and then my to be read. And so I just played around with it a little bit and whatnot, so you can sort of get the general idea of how I sort of do things. So that was last year's one. So I've done it a little bit different this year. Some things I've kept the same, some things I've changed up. So I've got my title page. Okay, this is, I love this. What is a bookshelf other than a treasure chest for a curious mind? I just love it, and I've just put a simple wording up there, reading journal for 2022. I'm not a fancy girl by any means. I just like to keep it as simple as possible. So that's my cover page, and then we go over to my daily reading challenge. So I've taken inspiration from all over the place: Pinterest, other YouTubers, combined, mishmashed, created my sort of own take on it and all the rest of it. So this is my daily reading challenge. I actually had this in last year's, and I used a highlighter, and I really didn't like how the page turned out. It was very vibrant, and it just, I'll just bring it up for you from last year when I find it. It's in here somewhere. So, like, while it looked okay, and all the rest of it, and you can see there's quite a, I didn't end up finishing it off at the end of the year. I just ticked, and I know that I read most of those days except for the last 3 days. But yeah, so you can see it's very vibrant. So I've decided to go a different way this year. Same principle. I was just playing around with stamps and stuff. Didn't really like how that turned out. This was very much a, experiment as such, because I've never kept a reading journal before. So as well as having Goodreads online, that's really quick for me. When I've checked off a book and all the rest of it, I come back and I just play around with my colour pencils, and it's very relaxing, believe it or not. So I've got that in there. I've ruled it all with black lines so I can distinguish between the dates. So I've got the dates down here, and I've just used this is my own writing, just done it as best as I need. I'm not a very good writer, so I've just written as much as I can, and I've just used a couple of stamps. I mean, I wear glasses, so that was very relevant, and an open book. This is my bookshelfie. This is like a lot of YouTubers do this, and this is all over Pinterest everywhere. So as you can see, I'm just writing in the books that I have read. So this is another way of logging the books. And I just like the aesthetic of it. I like the look of it and all the rest of it. As you can see, I'm starting to draw plants. I've still got some more things to do in this, and bring some more colour out. So as time goes on, I'll probably draw another, some plants or whatnot. As I'm reading a lot of books, I think this only goes up to about 60 or whatever. So as I go on, probably halfway through the year, this will be full. And I will do another spread in the middle of my journal of this. So yeah, and then that way I'll have both of them. All right, the next one is my 22 books in 22. So this is new releases, ones that I want to read. So I've got a mixture of series that I'm in the middle of. So I've got another Outlander on there. I'm planning on finishing that series off this year, but I've just got one on here. A book that I got for Christmas from my daughter. There's new releases. There's a couple of classics on here as well. So most of them that are on here, except for Jane Eyre, The Crooked Kingdom, Mount Across the Count of Monte Cristo, got tongue-tied there, The Tattooist of Auschwitz, Two Cities, The Name of the Wind, and The Voyager, are all books that have been out for quite some time. The rest are all anticipated reads of 2022. And if you want to find those, they are just off Goodreads. That's all I've done off Goodreads. The ones that there's plenty there, but these are the ones that appealed to me the most. So yeah. And then I've got my bingo challenge that we've got happening over in DD's Quilting and Crafting group. We've got reading challenges happening over there. So we have the A to Z and we have the bingo as well. So my bingo, so you can see we've done our 2 prompts, and I'm just blotting them out as I would if I was playing bingo. And I've set 4 pages aside. So this is one spread, and then I've done the border for the second spread. So this is January through to March, then it'll be April through to June, then it'll be July, August, September, October, November, December. Will go in there. So that's why I've got the paper clip there. And I just did colourful balls around it for bingo balls. Let me just take a sip of coffee. Been to Macca's this morning, so that was good. I haven't had a store-bought coffee for a few weeks now. So yeah, I just thought I'd do bingo balls. I like the way it turned out. It looks okay. And with I've just printed that off and then stuck it in as opposed to drawing it, and all I've done is done a little bit of ink around the outside just to tone the whiteness down a little bit so it sort of blends in a little bit more. And then I've shadow boxed each of the ones. It just makes it easier, less time consuming. It's already done then, and then I can just print it off. All right, the next one, this is another one that we've got happening over in Darvanalee Designs, in DD's Quilting and Crafting group. I haven't written down the third book that I read, but This is the A to Z challenge. Now, I did this last year as well, and I'll just bring it up. And I did all but 3. And sometimes what I'll do, you'll be able to see it. For J, oh, so I missed 4 last year. I did end up reading another one for J, but I just didn't write it in. And that was Joy at Work by Marie Kondo. And so I haven't written that in. So I did actually check off J, but I didn't get Q, X, and Z. So I've actually found books that match that. So The Queen's Gambit is a Netflix series. X by Sue Grafton. She actually has an A to X series. She died before Z could be, I believe she died before she could finish book Z, and it's a mystery, I think it is, or psychological thriller, and it starts at A and goes right through the alphabet. So I didn't want to read all her books, which I'm thinking that I might actually put them on to be read, because I will be able to put them down for a lot of the A to Z. Is it cheating? No, not really. But yeah, so I read all these books last year, and as you see, I managed to fill the prompt. Now, if it has The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I took it not including the word the or a. So that's how I ended up with that, and that was my bingo that we did at the end of last year. So you can see how I've just sort of I drew that one out. This year I was a little bit lazier and all the rest of it, and I met all the prompts. So that is what that will be. So I may end up taking those 3 that I've written down there to be read for those prompts and read them this year yet. So we'll see how we go, because I have a lot of books that I got from Book Grocer and all the rest of it. All right, so the next one is my Goodreads. Now, this actually has to have an extra page put on it, because I'm actually I've got 100 books in 2022. I've actually now changed that to 110 on Goodreads, but I am aiming for the 100, and the 10 is an extra. I still may cross that out and put 110 in there, but for now I'll just leave it at that. As you can see, I got 96 boxes on this page, and so what I'm going to do is just going to add a little flip out to add extra boxes as I need them. So we're up to, what are we at? Today's date is the 10th. So I've already read 3 books, and I've got 2 more on the go, which I'll possibly finish by the end of this week, because they're not exactly large books. So I'm very much going to be hitting that target. And remember, last year I actually didn't read very much in the middle of the year after Mia went back. I was very depressed and all the rest of it, and I just couldn't get into reading. There were some months there where I only read 2 books. So I'm planning on having a minimum of 8 books a month. And a lot of those will be physical books and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just trying to get, not that I'm not stressing, like it sounds like I'm stressing myself out. I really do love reading. I just love curling up with a good book at the end of the day and just reading. Last week when I read the Thorn Birds, bad mistake, because I didn't go to sleep until like 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. I think there was 4 nights there, including one night where I just sat up and played with this as well. So yeah, but it's good. It gives me a little bit of a break. Sometimes I'll do this when I'm listening to a book as well. So you can see down the bottom on this, and these are colourful. So you can see down the bottom, I'm using my my liners, if I can get one out. So I'll just show you what they look like. I'm just using my mild liners for this thing. They're just a highlighter, but they've got a fine tip as well as a highlighter end, and these don't bleed through or anything like that. So if you're looking for good pens to use, and I've got a couple of sets, so I've got browns and all that sort of stuff as well. I'll leave a link down below where you can get those, and I also use these ones as well quite a bit for my drop boxes and stuff like that. So I'll leave a link down below where you can get those as well. They don't bleed through on any of the journals that I've used. So even that last one last year, that was a very cheap one. I think I paid $10 for it, and it didn't bleed through. So you can see down here I've got a bit of a code happening. So I've got crime fiction, romance, young adult, true crime, fantasy, and classics. Obviously the crime fiction will cover psychological thrillers and all that sort of stuff. So it's a broad spectrum prompt, but they are the colors that we'll see on here. And then at a glance, I can see the genre that I read more, as opposed on Goodreads, even though I'm doing this on Goodreads as well, I don't have to go in to find out what genre it's from. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can just do it at a glance and I don't have to go hunting for it. Okay, so this one will be filled out slowly over the year. This is my favorite monthly reads. This one, I took this from a, and I can't remember who it was. They use it for their book club. Like, I think they've got a Patreon, and they have a monthly book club, and basically they put their book club reads in it. Well, I don't have a book club, so I just put it as my monthly favorite reads. Although I am actually thinking of starting up a monthly read, that like buddy read with a few people that I talk to, and they join me and all the rest of it. I'm just not sure how I'll work it out yet, like how we're gonna work out how to pick which book. Like, I've got a Zoom account and all the rest of it, so we may just get together, we'll have a couple of books that that are interesting, and we'll pick from that and then do that as a monthly book club. But that'll come later in the year, I think, once I nut down the details and all the rest of it, because it's always great to read books with people that then you can discuss and whatnot. So yeah, so this is my monthly favorite reads, and another spread will help me to get to this, and this is where I'm going to put the book covers, okay, for that monthly read. And you'll see that I do repeat this through a few times, because I have smaller, really small ones, and then bigger ones and stuff, and I just use the book covers. So this one here, I will actually, I could also do this as my 5-star reads for the year as well, and that's probably, you know, obviously your 5-star reads are the ones that are going to make the cut for your favorite books. So basically what I will do is I will put a picture of the book cover, and then I will just, in this bottom bit here, I will put the star rating for it, because, you know, sometimes there's something that you might pick on it. This one I seen on YouTube, I think I seen this. This is a big books log, basically. I think it's can't think of her name right now. My Little Journal, I think she does this. She reads big books with a buddy. So, but I took a take on that and put, I like big books, I cannot lie. So I took a take from a song, and yeah, so basically to classify what a big book is to me, it is more than 600 pages. So this is right at the bottom end of the scale. So I've actually left 2 spreads for this. So I've got 6 here, and room for 6 on the other one. So I'm looking to read at least one big book a month. So when I'm selecting my books, whether that be a classic, whether it be anything like that. So I did want to do another spread in here of classics that I've read, but I figured that I'm going to be covering that in this, and also in my monthly reads and stuff like that. I may look at doing that next year. So that's what I've got here. I've just drawn a series of boxes. I made my little I could have probably made them look a little bit more like books, but I've just put drop boxes around them, and this I've done a little bit smaller, so I've just filled that out. So I'll do that through, but it's okay. I mean, it's a work in progress. So I finished that. I put the finish date in here, and how many pages, and who it was by, and I need an S on the end of that. So yeah, and then I'll just do that as I go. And as I said, I've left 2 spreads for that. Now this is new. I got this from a YouTuber. She's a bullet journaler normally, and so she does monthly spreads and stuff like that, and this was just something that she shared from her reading journal, and so I took a screenshot of it. And so basically each month is represented up here, and I put in what my favorite book was from that, and then I narrow it down to, out of those 4 months, I'll narrow it down to 2, and then out of those I'll narrow it down. So basically what this spread's going to do for me is it's going to help me contemplate the books that I found very interesting, that were my favorite for the month, contemplate on those 4 books over the 4 months, and work out what those 2 are, and then further for me, it's going to be further research, further contemplation to narrow it down to one, and then it'll just do that all throughout the year. So it will help me to remember, it will help me to contemplate and what I thought of it, and take more serious notes and stuff like that about the books. So yeah, I pretty much copied this bit to and also the color as well, and some of the, I pretty much copied it. And I honestly cannot remember that. I've only ever watched her once, and I just happened to see it, and I really liked that because I thought it would help me to contemplate more, to think about the books that I'm reading a little bit more, and you know, the ones that tug emotion and stuff like that. And obviously I'll have side notes that will go with that, and then at the end of it I will put a little envelope here with the reasons why I came to the conclusion of that being my favorite book. And you know, obviously the favorite books of the month will come back over to my favorite monthly reads, so I'll be able to, because I'm not going to be putting the book covers there, but I'll actually have the book covers here, so that those two sort of go hand in hand. And I only really come across that in the last week and a half, I think it was, or just before New Year's. Alright, so it's called the 2022 book bracket, and the next one is where we start getting into our monthly. So as you can see, I like to put a little bit of artwork that I like, bookish quotes and stuff like that, as opposed to trying to draw them out myself. I just find the ones that appeal to me. So sometimes I might sit on Pinterest, and just when I'm waiting for an appointment or whatever, I might be listening to a book, and I'll just flick through and I'll find my favorite pieces of art, and I'll you know, that really struck a chord with me. It might have a quote, it might just be a piece of art, and I'll just pop that in. And so this is how I'm going to start each month, with a piece of art, and then just like this. And you can see here that I've got magical stitches because I've got 4 books I've got to read this month. So I allow a week for each of those books. Obviously some of them will be audiobooks and all the rest of it. I've also put in my finishes, the dates that I finished them. So I forgot to put Born in Ice, which I finished yesterday. So I've got the Thorn Birds, I finished there, The Perfect Facade, and Born in Ice was finished there. So I'll put that in. So I've got my finishes and everything there. So again, this is just a quick reference. If I'm not sure, I have my bookmark usually sitting to here, so I can open it up and go, right, what am I doing when I get to Monday? All right, what have I got to start? What have I got to do? And stuff like that. And it just keeps me in check. And I've just used stickers. I've drawn the boxes myself. I've added some little stars and added a little washi tape. It's simple. Dropbox, shadow box on the calendar. It's simple. I like it, and I use this as I've got a stamp with this, and then I just put that down and put the 22 down a little bit, put a couple of stars around it, and I called it done. You know, I'm no artist, I'm no expert. I just like playing with all my textures and pencils and stuff like that. And I've got washi tapes, and you know, it's no good sitting in a cupboard. I may as well use it. So I just, hopefully it'll get a little bit more creative as I go. All right, the next one is my to be read, or my TBR. Okay, so I've written down all the books that I want to read in the month of January. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 that are there. So some of these are bingo prompts, some of them are for magical stitches, and all that sort of stuff. So I've put that in there, and basically what will happen is I will, as a bingo prompt comes up, I will go and select from here. I've got some audiobooks on the go. The Name of the Wind I started at the end of last year, and then I shelved it to come back to it because I wasn't in the right mindset for it. I've got a couple of audiobooks on here as well. So, and you can also see that I haven't put in my series that I'm reading at the moment, which is the Jessie Hunt and also Virgin River. I haven't put them in there because those usually get read during the week anyway. So I will still know that I've read them, because that leads me to this page here, which is January reads. So what's going to happen is, remember I showed you I had my cover pages of the book covers? Well, the book covers are going to go here. So I'm still not sure how I'm going to lay it out, whether I'm going to do it in a collage or whether I'm going to do it row by row. I'm thinking I may do it like a collage, so overlapping and just try to fill the space with them, and then it'll be very colourful and vibrant as well. And I've also got down at the bottom of this page, because this doesn't need a full page, so I just thought I'd put it here, my monthly stats. So that will get filled in at the end of the month once I know what I've read off my TBR. If I haven't finished off anything on my TBR, it will get moved to next month. And so I will have my book covers here, and then I will know how many books I've read and how many pages for the month I've read. Because Goodreads does this as well, but I find it very difficult to find on Goodreads at any given time. Sometimes it's there straight away, other times it won't pop up. So I figured if I had a month at a glance, I can just come back and I can see how many pages, and then at the end of the year I can do my totals, because I'll have a page or a spread at the end of the year for yearly totals and all that sort of stuff, and favorite quotes and things like that, because I don't know whether I'll fill this book or not, but it'll come close. So that is the beginning of January. Then we've got the to be read and my January reads, and then we flip over to the next page, which will be my favorite book. So again, this will be a bigger picture to pretty much finish this spread off. Or I'm thinking of doing it two ways, actually. I was thinking of maybe doing a smaller one and then taking my favorite quote, or my favorite sentence, or my favorite paragraph, and just jotting that down. Another thing that I was thinking of doing is actually maybe doing these as double spreads, and actually doing a spread of an imagery of the books, whether it be with stickers or pictures or anything like that. And then I'm just finishing off the month with another piece of art, and then that's it. So that is up to, and then I'll be up to February. So I'm looking at doing this sort of layout consistently, so I don't have to think about each layout. So this will be pretty much how each month will go. Obviously some months might have a little bit more, because I may have to have 2 pages for the reads and all the rest of it, but that's pretty much how I'm going to go. And all I do is I just type this out and then print it off and then ink it up a little bit so it's not so stark white, and you can see it sort of blends in. I was playing around here of doing the drop shadow on it. I don't really like that, so I've left it off up here. But yeah, and I really like just finding little bits of art that I can just incorporate in, and it just looks like it's going to be a beautiful book to flick through, and a good caption of what my 2022 was like. Alright, so hopefully you like that little bit of a flick through. A couple of people had questioned me about it and whatnot. So yeah, I just thought I would do that today, and then that's you can see where I'm at. And now we'll get our stitching in place. I've just got to bring up it's a very close up and personal snapshot of that, isn't it? Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do some stitching, and then I am going to talk about the books that I have read in the last week. So let me just get myself all sorted up and we'll get stitching. So I'm only using black today. I use that much black in my stuff that I actually have a cone of it. It's just what I need to do basically, because I'd be always buying 310, because a lot of the Halloween charts and everything that I do are predominantly black, and so it just makes it easier to have that cone. Alright, so I'm going to be working on the witch. Hopefully you can't see that. I'll stop my light from bouncing. I can't really see it either with that light sitting there. Alright, I've got my cuppa, and I'm about to start on the witch. So that's where I left off last time. So yeah, I'll get stuck into that and we will talk about the books that I read. So this week I read 3 books. I read The Thorn Birds, by Colleen McLeod, I think is how you pronounce her name. I also read Born in Ice by Nora Roberts, and I read another installment in the Jessie Hunt series that I've been reading. So I'm up to book 12 on that one. All right, so basically I'm going to start with The Thorn Birds. This book was published back in 1977. It was a bingo prompt for DD's bingo that we've got going on at the moment, and I had to read a book off the New York Times bestseller. list. So this was number 2 in week 9 of 77. It is in the romance of, it's in the genre of romance, and the setting is New Zealand and Australia, and I read this on Kindle. I started it on the 1st of January and finished it on the 5th, although I didn't really sink my teeth into it until on the 2nd. All right, so the Thorn Birds is a romantic saga following the family called the Clearys, and it starts back in New Zealand in 1915, where we're introduced to Maggie on her 4th birthday. Subsequently, the Clearys are a large family. There are 7 children, and Maggie is the only daughter. And her mother, Fee, is a very emotionally closed off woman, and her father, Paddy, is a very hardworking, but they are poor. Essentially, they are poor, even though Fee came from a well-to-do family. So, as I said, the story centers around Maggie and her family, and basically it's just starts off in New Zealand. They're setting up the characters and all the rest of it. Maggie is very close to her older brother, firstborn Jack, and so it goes from her 4th birthday and her brother's giving her a torment and all the rest of it to her at school, at the Catholic school, being introduced to the nuns and all the rest of it. And the nuns were vicious. There's a little bit of racism in it, not a great deal. There is a little bit throughout the book, so if that's something that you don't like, it is there, but it's not hardcore racism or anything like that. It just sort of just brushes over it a little bit. But as I said, it follows the story of Maggie's family, the Clearys, and the reason they end up leaving New Zealand and end up in Australia is because Paddy has an older sister who is widowed and she has no children, and so she is going to leave her sheep station, Drogheda, which is in New South Wales outback, to him and his family. So she sends him a letter when Maggie is around 10 and says, come to Australia so you can learn how to run the sheep station and all the rest of it while she's still alive. She's in her 60s at this stage. And so subsequently he packs up his family. They take all their worldly possessions. They get on a boat and go across the ocean to Australia, and they're a little bit naive of the vastity of Australia and all the rest of it coming from New Zealand, and they thought it was just like where they lived. It wasn't too far when they looked at the map through the children's eyes and stuff like that. So subsequently they end up in New South Wales. They travel out to the station where they meet Mary, and Paddy hasn't seen her. I think he was really young when she left home and came to Australia and all the rest of it and forged out a life for herself. So she's very wealthy, and a little bit bitter and twisted, to say the least. This book is a reread for me. I read this back when I was 19, 20, so over 30 years ago now, and I wanted to reread it because the simple fact is that I've got a lot more life experience now. I've got a lot more books under my belt, so to speak, and stuff like that. So I just wanted to see if I still enjoyed it as much as I did the first time I did. And I can honestly say I did. It is a 5-star read for me. I've also watched the miniseries. It was one of the last miniseries that I watched with my mum before I left home. And that was brilliant as well. So it's got some iconic actors in there and Australian cast and whatnot. So subsequently, as I said, at the age of 10, she ends up in the outback on Drogheda, the sheep station that's owned by Mary Carson, and that's where we're introduced to the character of Ralph de Bricassor, and he is an ambitious Catholic priest that has a lot to do. He must have had some sort of indiscretion when he was younger, and he was sent out to this outback area where he took care of their religious needs and stuff like that. So he's a Catholic priest, and Mary Carson has a soft spot for him, so she's always made sure that he was taken care of and stuff like that, and he's always had a soft spot for her, and they play this sort of cat and mouse game and all the rest of it. Well, he meets Maggie and he just thinks she's the most adorable young girl that he's ever met, and there's nothing untoward there or anything like that. He just feels for her because he can see that the mother and the father are so caught up in their own life that they're neglecting that she's there. Like, she's just non-existent because sons are everything. And basically, as she grows older, she becomes more helpful around the house, and, you know, she ends up spending more time looking after one of the babies that are born, Stu, and they become very close, and there's a whole story with the older brother that she was really close to. He ends up leaving, and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, so there's just a lot of backstory happening throughout this whole book. What I love the most about this book is the fact that the author is able to describe the Australian outback so well. I mean, of course, she is able to do that because she is New South Wales born, and she was a trained as a neuroscience, which is pretty amazing in itself. So she was able to just describe things so intensely and so well that it just transported to you. If you've ever been in the outback or anywhere that's dry and arid and hot and all the rest of it, you could seriously relate to how she was describing everything. It felt like you were there, and all that sort of stuff, like the dry storms that she described, the flies even. And there's one scene there that it was a little bit gross, but she described it so well because that's exactly what would happen, you know, like it is exactly what would happen in that situation of that time. And so it was really, really well described and you really felt like you were there. And as I said, it is a romantic story. It is a bit of a saga. It spans from 1915 through to 1961, and it covers a lot of the main the main characters are throughout all of the parts of the book. So you've got Maggie and Ralph are the main characters, and then there's a little bit of a twist thrown in on the priest side, and he has to make a decision which is going to affect everybody subsequently. So the main thing that brought that about was that it came down to jealousy. It came down to Mary Carson being jealous of the relationship that Ralph, the priest, had with Maggie. Even though it wasn't a romantic at that point, it was just a friendship. She was jealous of that friendship, and there was no romantic thing happening between Mary Carson and the priest. It was just all her own jealousy of that friendship that Maggie had and all the rest of it. And she never liked Maggie and stuff like that. So subsequently, this cat and mouse game that they played come to a head, and there was decisions that were made that affected everybody. So throughout the book, you find yourself going, will they or won't they, and all this sort of stuff, because as Maggie was growing into a woman, things were starting to come to the surface and all the rest of it. And he's a very ambitious priest, and throughout it you are just going, will he leave the church? Will he stay? What will happen? And you feel like, you know, you're going through this emotional roller coaster. This book will make you cry. It will make you laugh at certain things. It'll make you wish more for the characters. It'll make you want more about that character and all that sort of stuff. As I said, it's a reread for me, and it's still just as good as it was the first time I read it. And basically it's broken up into sections, and so it covers these characters in each section, but then all the other characters, so the other children and stuff like that, are in there as well. So there's characters from the church, there's characters from the family, there's, you know, characters from the town and stuff like that, and they're all brought in little whiffs and all the rest of it. And it goes, as I said, from 1915, so it covers some of the Depression, it covers some of World War II. Didn't really touch on World War I at all. Didn't touch on any of the Spanish flu or anything like that either. There was mentions of it, but it didn't hone in on the living of that day, of that time, and all that sort of stuff. But there was quite a substantial amount of World War II and the Depression as well. So it starts off, part one starts off with Maggie, so we're introduced to her. Then part two is about Ralph, so we're introduced to him and his story and his backstory and stuff like that. Then it goes on to Paddy, which only covers a couple of years of Paddy. Even though he's an integral part of the story and he's the reason why they're all there, it only he is throughout the story and all the rest of it, but it only covers a couple of years intently on him. And then there is a section on Luke, which is the husband that Maggie settles for. And then it covers that for quite a few years, and then it comes back to covering Fee and through the Second World War and all that sort of stuff. And it enlightens you of her story and why she's so aloof and so emotionally withdrawn and all that sort of stuff. And then it also goes on to... then the next section is about Dane and then Justine. So they are kids that are in the story. And Mary Carson obviously is throughout is because she is the reason that they've all ended up there along with Paddy. So she's scattered out through there. And then, as I said, there are other characters that are in there that you will fall in love with and you'll hope for and all that sort of stuff. That even though they're not the main characters, they're still an integral part of the story. And it is just a fascinating read. And like, even when she describes because Maggie goes off to, there's a little bit of a spoiler here, Maggie goes off with her husband Luke and she ends up in the cane fields of North Queensland in the humidity and all that sort of stuff, and she describes just the wetness and how when she arrived there she was overdressed basically, and you know, people were, in her opinion, were almost naked because they didn't have, you know, long skirts and all that sort of stuff. So you got to remember the time that this was set in, the clothing and all the rest of it. And, you know, New South Wales weather to Queensland weather are two entirely different beasts and all the rest of it. And so basically it covered the struggle of her being married and her not knowing about things and the struggle of being in the humidity. And yeah, it was just, I don't want to give too much away, but if you've not read this book before, definitely read it. You will love being transported into the outback of New South Wales and then subsequently into the tropics of Queensland and all that entails and how, if you're not used to it, how debilitating it actually can be and whatnot. I mean, you won't like the character Luke. He is a character that you love to hate. He married her for money and subsequently treated her terribly and just basically was not a nice guy. So yeah, you won't like him. You will fall in love with him at first until you understand his ulterior motives, and subsequently you won't like him at all. I don't like him at all. I just thought, what a douche. And he got what he deserved in the end. So, but I just love the way that she brought it all together. As I said, it's a 5-star read for me. You'll absolutely love it. If you haven't read it, definitely read it. The descriptiveness of the author, the way she has described things, even down to the molasses in the cane at the mill and all the rest of it. And if anybody's ever been near a sugar mill, you'll know the smell that I'm talking about. You know, it is quite a distinctive smell and can be quite rank. I have camped near a sugar mill before, so I've smelt the smell that she describes. I've not been where there's been lots of sugar mills and stuff like that, so I've never been to the cane fields of northern Queensland. I haven't gone up that far. I've gone as far as Proserpine, but I didn't stay for very long. It was just, we flew there, picked up a car, drove home. So it's something, it sort of is sparking my adventure to get out there. I mean, obviously it's going to be a bit different now than what it was back when this is supposed to be set, even to when this book was written and stuff like that. But it'd still be good to get up there and just have a look. And yeah, just the way she described it and all that sort of stuff. So I've been to the cane fields of like northern New South Wales, and I've been to mills and stuff around there, and I can remember the molasses smell and all the rest of it. But it'd be interesting to see what it'd be like up there. And they don't really, I don't know if they burn. I know that they don't down in New South Wales. They don't burn the cane fields or anything anymore. So I'm not sure if they still do that or not, because of the environmental impact and all that sort of hoo-ha. So, yeah. But I absolutely, I felt every emotion with this book. I cried some tears. I laughed at certain things. I was wanting more for certain characters, because there were some things that I felt were skimmed over a little bit. She probably really could have added a little bit more, but hey, I mean, 692 pages is nothing to sneeze at. If she had have, I guess sometimes when you're writing a book, you do have to skim over some things, but it didn't leave me wanting, like, I didn't feel like the book wasn't complete or anything like that. I just thought it would have been good if we had a little bit more there of that. Apparently, like, I have seen that there is I think it's a TV movie called The Missing Years, but it doesn't have the original. I think it's got the guy, what was his name? Richard Chamberlain, I think his name was. Yeah, Richard Chamberlain. He played the main character in the teleseries, and I've seen just some imagery that he's in the Missing Years, but it's not the original Maggie that they had, which was Rachel Ward, and she was married to Brian Brown, and Brian Brown played Luke, I believe, from memory. I'd have to check that out, but I'm pretty sure he played Luke in the because I haven't seen it since it came out in the 80s. Like, that's when I watched it last. I've not watched it since. So I'll have to, and I found it is being streamed on Australian TV on Prime. Amazon Prime streaming service is what I've got, and I found it on there. So I'm thinking that I might watch that on the weekend. Might be a bit of a good good watch after reading it. I didn't want to watch it before I'd done my review on here, because I thought it'll just jade it, even though I've reread it and I've already watched it. But as I said, I haven't done that since the 80s. So, yeah, I think that's how I might spend my weekend, doing a little bit of cross-stitch and watching a bit of TV. So that is The Thorn Birds. As I said, I gave it a 5-star rating. And if you haven't read it, I suggest that you read it. And be careful, because you will sit up late reading it. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is the second book in a trilogy that I'm reading by Nora Roberts. Excuse me. And that is for a Magical Stitches prompt that I'm reading this. I read this one. Excuse me while I have a drink. Okay, so originally I started reading this one because it was a bingo prompt for DD's Bingo challenge at the end of last year. I had to read a author with the same initials as me. So I read Nora Roberts. I came across this Born In trilogy, and it was called Born in Fire. So it covered the story, just for those that didn't hear that review, that covered the story of Maggie, and she is a glass blower, and subsequently it is a love story. And it just followed her journey of meeting. Essentially, she's an artist, and she was introduced to a guy came looking for her that was a curator. So basically, he was looking to stock her stuff in his galleries and stuff like that. So the book that I read for the Magical Stitches prompt is, again, it was for an author starting with the letter N. So everything that I'm reading for Magical Stitches this month will start with the letter N. So whether it be there's 4 prompts. So we've got, one has to have name, the actual word name in the title. Another one actually has to have the word novice in the title. We have to read an author with their name starting with N, so Nora Roberts for me. And the other one is the setting needs to be a country that starts with N. So I've got one for New Zealand. So this one met the prompt for the author's name, and it had 371 pages. It was published in 1995. It is in the genre of romance. The setting is in Ireland, Western Ireland. This format was audio, and the narrator is Fias Douglas, and it is a male reader. I started this on the 7th of January, finished it on the 8th because it was a pretty quick listen. And I actually gave this one 4 stars, where I only gave the first one 3 stars. I didn't give it a 5-star rating, and I probably could drop half star, but I don't do half stars, so it's either 3 or 4. So I went with 4 because it was a really good book. This one could stand alone. There is enough backstory in this one to not have to read the first one. The first one was okay, but it wasn't great. I wasn't thrilled by it, and it was my first Nora Roberts as well, so really she's lucky that I'm coming back to this one, and the only reason I am is because I already had started listening to it, and I was being a bit lazy and didn't want to look for another one. So basically it follows on from book 1, and it is now focusing on Brianna. We learn about Brianna in the first book. She looked after her mum. Maggie come into a heap of money. She subsequently set her mum up with a carer in her own house, and Brianna retained the family home, and she turned it into a B&B. So she has spent a lot of time building this business up and absolutely loving it. She loves to cook for people, loves to meet people, all that sort of stuff. She has had a relationship in the past that that didn't work out. The only way I can say this is giving a bit of her mother wrecked that for her, so subsequently she's ended up alone, and her mother did it for selfish reasons and whatnot. So anyway, it follows her story and her love of her B&B and all the rest of it, and but this year's a little bit different. She's got a famous mystery writer coming to stay, and he's supposed to only stay for a month. And his name is Grayson Than. And so he's from the USA, and that's sort of where the story sort of starts off. And he, just before he arrives, she is planning to expand her B&B. So she's looking to the attic to turn it into another room, and she's dreaming of this and that and the other. And subsequently, while she's doing this cleaning up of the attic, she comes across some letters that are love letters to her father. And so this starts a little bit of a side plot where she lets her sister in on the story, and her sister is now 6 months pregnant, happily married, and all the rest of it. So they get her husband to hire a detective to find this woman, and and I'm just going to leave it there because that is a little bit of a side plot, but it is part of the story, and I don't want to give too much away, especially for those that want to read these books. So anyway, that's happening. There's also another side plot of other paperwork that she found as well that is happening. There's a little bit of mystery and some twists and turns and all the rest of it after Grayson turns up. He becomes a little bit smitten with her, and it turns out that she doesn't have much experience in the love stakes and all the rest of it. She is actually a virgin, and he's a bit of a douche. I didn't actually like him, and I think that's why I rated this book down. He was very quick to temper and all the rest of it, and I really didn't like that, and I didn't like the fact that she sort of accepted that behaviour. But in saying that, this book was written 27 years ago, and the sign of the times of that era, which is not really that long ago in the scheme of things, but it's still long enough ago to know that it was sort of the way a lot of books were written. Not a lot. There was a few books there that, the male character was always a little bit abrasive, so to speak. And the female character was almost a little bit submissive in ways. But yeah, there's enough romance and stuff in there to sort of accept it as the premise of this book and all the rest of it, but I really didn't like him as a character, and that's probably from my own experiences of anger and stuff like that being toward me in my younger years and that, so it automatically gives me a bit of a
stop and don't like it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the storyline because they've left it off a little bit. So I'm looking forward to the third one. Am I going to read it straight away? Probably not. I'll probably hold off and see if I can't fit it to a couple of prompts and whatnot for the bingo and challenges that I've got going. But I do really, really love the premise of the subplots are in here. Like one of them came to a head and they finalised all that and all the rest of it. It was quite a funny little story. I mean, still, like, you know, not great. So it's got, as I said, this book has got a love story in it. It's got a bit of mystery and it's got a scam in it as well. So it sort of touches on quite a few different things. As I said, I gave it 4 stars. It's not a bad series. It's not the worst thing I've read. So maybe it's something that you can pick up. It's on Kindle and it's on Scribe. I dare say it's probably on Audible as well. I listened to it through Scribe. I found it on there because it's part of my membership and I pay that. So I always go to Scribe first to find it. All right. So the next one that I read is another book in the Jessie Hunt mystery psychological thriller book series that I'm reading. So we're up to book 12. This one has 199 pages. It was published in February 2021. The genre is psychological thriller. The setting is LA. It is on audio is the format, and because there's just way too many books to buy. And the narrator is Abigail Reno. I started this on the 6th. Finished on the 7th, gave it 4 stars for this one. So I was pretty happy with this one. As always, it starts out with a murder. We have the murder of Claudia. She was celebrating her 40th birthday back in the hotel room. She's murdered while everybody else has passed out. Then Jessie teams up with a detective that she's worked for in the past named Karen Bray, but she was actually conned into this a little bit by her old boss. She's not working for the LAPD. She just consults for them now, and her boss rang up and told her that Karen had requested her, and turns out that was a load of hogwash. We've got a couple of twists and turns in there. It is one that you can't stop. I couldn't stop listening to this one. I pretty much I didn't want to turn it off when I was going to bed, but I like to finish my day with a physical read. And so basically there was a twist and turns, and I did not see the ending on this one. What I'm liking, I think, about this book too is the subplots that have come into it. So Hannah is still doing some risky behaviour and stuff like that. So that is developing more. And remember, I think it was last time I talked about this series, or the time before that, I said I think they should just drop the cat character. Well, she's come back into it a little bit. So she's investigating something, and Hannah's doing more and more risky behaviour. So that is starting to escalate now. So I'm pretty excited to see where Hannah's going to go. And this has been a building plot line throughout the series, and I'm really loving it. There has been some mention back in a few books that there was a serial killer that I can't think of his name now, but anyway, he was the profiler that left the house to Jessie, and basically he didn't solve this murder, and so this serial killer, he had a run-in with him, but he never did solve who it was. So let me just look back. Do I have it written down here? Oh, Garland Moses. He never solved this. So he was he died a couple of books back, and she was left the house because he felt that he was really close to her, and he didn't have children and all that sort of stuff. And so he left the house to her and all the paperwork for it. And she's been slowly going over the stuff and all the rest of it. Well, this is starting to rear its head now, and it was only just a slight mention, so I don't know where it's going to go with it. But they've definitely set this book up to continue on again. As I said, there's about 19 so far, maybe 20 in this series. I will have to double check that because they keep coming out. They're just quite great, quick reads and listens to. I listen to these during the week, and I just love them. I think it's absolutely fabulous. I gave it 4 stars. And there's also another subplot that's just come up as well. So we've still got Ryan on the mend from a couple of books ago where he almost died. And so the night nurse has been sent away now. They don't need her as much. He's starting to get around. His words aren't slurring anymore. So everything is starting to speed up a little bit with his recovery. He's getting more and more focused on getting back to work and all the rest of it. Subsequently, his boss rings him and asks him a favor to do this thing for him, and so that is now he's in the process of going, okay, well, and it involves that section of the department that they were working, so all the like serial killer stuff and all the real heavy cases and whatnot. They're looking, he's looking at other cases and seeing if he can't bring them in and stuff like that. But that is going to intensify, and I think that is where they're going to go with Ryan, that he'll do consulting as opposed to being a detective again. So I think that's my prediction for it, and I'm thinking that the Hannah story is really going to start to escalate in the next couple of books. So I'm really looking forward to it. 4 stars. You can find these over on Kindle, and they are also all in Scribe. And so, I mean, Scribe is only $8.99 a month US, and it's saving me a ton of money through being able to listen to them through that. All right, so that is it for me there. The 3 books that I have read this week. Hopefully you've enjoyed them. Hopefully I've inspired you to pick up the Thorn Birds or one of the other books as well. If you've liked this video today, don't forget to give us a thumbs up down below. And as always, if you've yet to subscribe or you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it. And that way you won't miss out on any future posts. And if you're only here for the books and the stitching, I do this every Monday where I review the books that I've read just while I'm stitching along. And that's it. Keep safe, everybody. Have a great week and get lots of craft in. And I will see you all again very soon for another video. Have a great week, everybody, and bye for now.